city of Raleigh, for the county, and especially decisions that could impact further out into the community. We just ask that you give them wisdom, that you grant them health, and that you bless this meeting. In Jesus' name, amen.
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 Thank you. I'd like to officially open the meeting. Carolyn, would you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on the agenda is the consent agenda to consider approval of the city council meetings from the meetings of June 1st and 15th. The 15th had a closed session associated with it, and we had a special council meeting on June 22nd.
Make a motion.
Second. Motion made and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We have no public hearings scheduled for tonight. We do have one presentation. Chief Hagan.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I am presenting a life-saving award to Officer Larry Cease today. On June 19th, 2020, while working, he was approached by Fidelity cable technician Jeremy Walney. Jeremy pointed out to Officer Cease that there was a house that they could hear the alarm inside. When Mr. Walney walked up to the door, he could smell smoke. He was about to call the police when he saw Larry. Larry immediately walked up, noticed the same thing. Smoke alarm going off, he could smell smoke. So he notified Central Communications, then notified the fire department. And knowing that there was a car in the driveway, and this, by the way, was his neighbor, who was on the same street, knew that the neighbor was there, he immediately made entry into the house, which was full of smoke from a fire in the kitchen. He went through the house until he located the homeowner, who was sound asleep in his bed. He tried to wake him up and could not. The guy was basically overcome from smoke. Removed him out of the bed and got him out of the house. Had he not done this, and the gentleman had to be treated for smoke inhalation. Had Larry not done this, there's no doubt that the outcome would have been a lot worse. By the time the fire department got there, there's a good chance that the gentleman had been deceased. So it's very difficult to get a life-saving award in our department. We don't just give them for giving somebody Narcan or something. You have to really go above and beyond. And obviously in this case, disregard for his own safety, he didn't have any of his usual fire equipment. I mean, he went in there just like he is right now and was able to drag this guy out. So for this, we are giving him a life-saving award.
We should get him. Give him 2 weeks. Let's think about that. Thank you. Thank you, Larry. Next item is the report from council reports and boards and commissions. There are 12 reports there. Are there any questions? If not, we have no old business scheduled for tonight. We do have one item under new business, and that is the discussion regarding a specific amendment to one of our ordinances. Judge Crump, would you like to make a presentation?
Before I get into all the boring details of what the rules and the statutes and the ordinances say, I want you all to think about or imagine yourself have received a ticket. Say it's something simple like a seatbelt ticket, like you forgot to put your seatbelt on. or your license plate is expired and you just forgot to go get it renewed. You know what all your rights are. You know what the fine is. And you decide that what your decision is that in your case, you want to just pay that ticket. But you can't. You go up to the clerk's office, you try to pay. Clerk says, sorry, you have to come to court. You think, well, why is that? She says, well, that's what the rules are, you got to come to court. So then your court's going to be on a Tuesday night because there's a traffic ticket. You're going to come in the front doors, you're going to look for your name on the docket. That docket's probably going to have about 200 cases on it. Even though and let's assume that we're not in any COVID restrictions and occupancy restrictions. You come down here to this room, because that's where the courtroom is. And even though you're here 15 minutes early, because you're not like me, you show up early, you have a hard time finding a seat because there's so many people on the docket. If your name starts with an A, because we normally go alphabetically, it is probably going to be 30 to 45 minutes before you're out of here. You can imagine what it's like at the end of the docket. And you might be asking yourself, why do I do this if all I want to do is I want to plead and pay? Well, I have an answer for you. So we have an ordinance here. The city council's passed it. We have an ordinance here. It's 30-16. It's our possession of marijuana ordinance. In that ordinance, one thing that the city council did, that in certain circumstances, marijuana, when it's less than 10 grams and if there's no prior drug history or drug conviction history, then in those cases, there's a fine only. And the other thing that the ordinance says is that that person, if they wish to, they can plead and pay that ticket without appearing in court. The problem with that ordinance is that it runs afoul of the Supreme Court rule. There's a Supreme Court rule, and all these rules are cited in the agenda item that's submitted. And basically, the Supreme Court rule says that as a municipal judge, I have the ability to enter something called a Violations Bureau order. What a Violations Bureau order says is that there are certain types of cases in certain circumstances in which defendants or parties who get tickets, if they wish to, they can plead and pay a standard fine. Up until May of last year, I had complete discretion as a municipal judge what those charges were and what those standard fines are. Starting last year, the state has decided that they want all of the fines and all of those types of charges to be uniform throughout the whole state for every municipal court. There was problems with that schedule that they set out. They made some revisions to it. In that meantime, that's when the city council passed the ordinance 37, the revision to 3716. I had some concerns on how we would apply that in our court because possession of marijuana is not one of those scheduled ordinance violations. So I decided that what I would do is I would seek the opinion of a part of the judicial branch called OSCA, which is the Office of, now I've completely forgotten.
State Court Administrator.
Yes, State Court Administration, thank you. So I sought an opinion from them. Their opinion is, let me back up. I sought an opinion from them because my interpretation of the rule and the ordinance and all the other rules and all the other laws that I have to follow was that I could not implement that specific portion of the ordinance that you all passed. However, I didn't want to do that just all on my own because I have a big concern that if I do that, then I'm messing with policy that you all are setting. And that's not my job as a judge. My job as a judge is not to set policy. It's to enforce the laws as you all pass them, as are limited by the state laws. So I sought an opinion. And they actually surprised me. Their opinion was that because there's this procedure in place in our ordinances that seems to try to do the same thing with marijuana, possession of marijuana, that they do with this other rule, that it means that I can't have a violations bureau order at all. I can't do it for any ticket. And part of this rule is that since it's a uniform system, that I cannot, if we have an ordinance that matches one of them on that uniform schedule, I can't add ordinance violations to it. I can't take away ordinance violations, and I can't change any of the standard fines. So I either, if I want a violations bureau order, and I want to allow folks to pay tickets without appearing in court, I have to follow their schedule and I have to follow their fine schedule. One of them that's an example, previously if you had got a ticket for speeding anything over 20 miles over the speed limit, that was a mandatory court appearance. My opinion is, if you're driving over 20 miles over the speed limit, you should at least have to come and see me in court. Not saying you're going to jail or anything like that, but you should be a little more inconvenienced, putting this at risk a little bit more than other situations. The state has decided in that case, it's anywhere between 20 and 25. There's still just a fine that they can pay without coming to court. I don't like that rule, but I have to follow it because that's what I do as a judge. So unfortunately, I'm going to tell you this. I don't want to be here tonight. I can't tell. This is not what I normally do. I'm used to controlling my environment a little bit better. I don't want to be here asking you all to change any ordinances. I don't want to, because I really am a big, huge believer in that a judge's job is to implement the laws as they're passed. Whether I like them or not, whether I agree with them or not, whether I would pass that rule or pass that law if I was in charge, that's not my job. So I really don't want to be here. So, but saying that, I think I can, within my role as the judge, I know that I can advise you all how the interplay of all these rules affect the court. And here's the problem, is if this ordinance is not, if that specific portion that says that someone can come and pay without appearing in court is not deleted somehow, then what Oscar's telling me is that I can't do it for anybody. It's including $10 seatbelt tickets. I'm still not quite for sure what that means for parking tickets. Parking tickets get treated a little bit differently. Just historically, they have been. And so if we don't change this, if somehow there's not a resolution of this, then what I'm going to be forced to do is I'm going to be forced to make everybody come to court. And our dockets, again, right now it's kind of a weird time because we have restrictions on how many people we can have in the courtroom. But we still have dockets on Tuesday night. Our dockets are somewhere between, even now when we started to open back up court, we have dockets between 80 to 100. We've got one docket. This is without implementing what Oscar tells me I have to do. We've got a docket later on, well, sometime in the next 30 days, that's over 200 cases. So we're going to have to spread that one out quite a bit, so we're going to be here pretty late that night. But that's what we have to do, because we have cases on that.
Judge, can I ask a question?
Yes.
So is it basically what needs, in order to fix this problem, you would need to remove the language that allows people charged with these small amounts of marijuana, that they can now, right now, they can just pay a fine. Well, they were just paying a fine if they wanted to. And you're saying now they can't do that under state law. But
They
if we,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
but if we remove that language, so now they would just have to appear in court, then that would fix the problem.
The only thing that we need to be, for me to have a violations bureau order, the only thing that would need to change is that one small provision that says they can pay without appearing in court.
Okay, so they would,
The fine amount can stay the same. I don't care what that is. That's not my job. That's y'all's job. To set that policy, to set maximum, minimum fines, that's not my job. But the part that says they can pay without appearing in court, that's the part that's causing OSCA to issue the opinion it is.
If I could respond, just to clarify, if you are looking at the marijuana ordinance, Section D lays out the penalty provisions. Number 4 of that, if you go down, there are 3 provisions. It's the second one that would need to be deleted to be able to have a fine bureau and keep municipal cases, or keep marijuana municipal cases in municipal court.
okay. So this wouldn't change the penalties for marijuana?
No, it wouldn't change. It would require that they appear in court. And this, as Judge Crump stated, this came about because OSCA and the Supreme Court issued rules, not state law, but they issued rules requiring the uniformity of fine schedules, and marijuana is not one of those offenses that is listed on that fine schedule. And because it's not listed on that fine schedule, it can't be run through the Traffic Bureau.
Well, and that's unfortunate, but I understand the need to remove that language to facilitate the rest of the cases that are on that schedule.
Did you have a question?
Yeah, I think I understand it clearly. I just have a quick question. If someone were coming to court, they previously was able to prepay, what do you call that?
Plead
and pay.
Plead and pay is what we in the business call it.
So they're previously able to plead and pay. If they're coming to the courtroom, they're not able to do that anymore. They wouldn't know at the time they're coming to the courtroom whether they're going to get a fine, jail time. So, I mean, they can assume potentially they may not get jail time because our prosecutor doesn't normally assign it, but would they know that for sure at the time coming to you, in front of you?
Before they plead,
They wouldn't.
well,
Oh.
before they plead, no. So the procedure would be, they would appear in front of me.
Right, not
I would
known.
I would read the charge to them. Before they did anything else, I would tell them what the range of punishment is.
Gotcha.
And if it is charged that it could be a fine only, then I would tell them that's the maximum fine. I'm going to tell you, I'm trying not to be too much of a judge law nerd. With this range, with this fine range, there's actually 3 ranges of punishment for possession of marijuana. There's the maximum that's set forth in that section, which is a $500 fine, 90 days in jail, some combination of jail time and fine. I am also limited by whatever the punishment is on state law. So there might be some circumstances where there's a smaller punishment under state law, and then there's a lesser punishment that you all have passed.
Gotcha.
And so there might be situations where it would be one of those things, and if I can't tell from the charging instrument,
Right.
most of the time I'm going to ask the prosecutor which one is the city asking for. So the person standing in front of me is going to know what the range of punishment is on possession of marijuana charge.
Could
Actually,
include-
on any charge.
could include jail time on that particular charge. They might not know that our prosecutor doesn't normally do that, but they would potentially be facing jail time if they can, I mean, they could be worried about that.
If they were to come to court before I told them what the range of punishment is, yes.
Okay. Another quick question, is there an amount of cannabis that are that fall under the city purview and what the amounts would then fall more likely under the, send it off to the county purview. Can you discuss that, or is there any?
I don't think
amounts?
the judge can answer that question because he doesn't make that decision. He only deals with what comes to him. If it goes over 35 grams, my guess is, from having worked as a prosecuting attorney, and I see that there is an assistant prosecuting attorney and also the municipal prosecutor in the back, over 35 grams can become a felony.
Right.
So it could be, that is likely to be dealt with in state court.
Okay.
Typically,
I'm going to say, the way the ordinance is written, if it's over 35 grams, I don't think it can be charged as a municipal ordinance violation.
Okay, that's kind of my question, so I think you answered it. Thank
If
you.
it's under,
but going back to your first question or your earlier question, I can't tell you what somebody's going to be worried about when they walk into court.
No.
But the answer to your question, the ordinance says that if it is a first-time offense, no prior history of drug offenses, the maximum fine is $100. So that's actually already in the ordinance. So that first general penalty provision
Right.
applies to everyone, but if they have no prior criminal history, that maximum then gets knocked down to the paragraph 4,
Right.
which is $100. So if you go to the city ordinances and read the city ordinances, and you know that this is the first time that you've ever been charged with that offense,
Right.
then you know that your offense is, the worst thing that can happen to you is pay $100 fine.
If it's your second or more offense, though, you could be looking at, you, under the law, you could be worried about jail time.
Certainly, but our ordinance pretty much mirrors what we have in state law as to the 10 grams and under of marijuana.
Thank you.
John, what do we need to do to make this amendment?
Why
That's
don't you let
suggested.
Lance go over the options, the
Okay.
options that you have?
Councilperson
I'm sorry,
had a question.
So this ordinance is for marijuana possession. Do we know if we have any other city ordinances that specify fines or penalties that are in contradiction to this standardized list?
Most, if not all of the ordinance, like most of the traffic ordinances that are on this list, and that's what they mostly are, they have a range of punishment in our ordinances that are a fine up to $500 or up to 90 days in jail, or some combination of jail time and fine. But if I have a state statute or a state rule that limits that, I have to go with the lesser of those two punishments. So most of them are in contradiction of that. And there's also another, I'm trying not to be too, there's a whole nother, because this municipal court reform has modified the maximum fine and no jail time that I can do on minor traffic offenses. And that limits what the range of punishment is also.
Yeah, I guess I wasn't quite so concerned about the range of punishment as if we have any other written ordinance.
I think what she's concerned about is whether or not there's other crimes that would need to be changed. And
Besides marijuana.
the answer is no. It all is based off of this fine schedule. So basically, all this fine schedule is traffic-related offenses primarily. There's a few on there that are not, but so we've gone through and we already know what all of those are, and we've actually already dealt with a couple in the past dealing with parking.
Handicap parking was one of them that was in violation.
And since we modified that one, we know everything that is actually on that list, and we're in compliance with that. And that was the intent, was that we would be able to maintain the fine bureau. So the only one that is currently on there that does not is this marijuana possession.
Thank you.
And I know Mr. Neckin wanted to speak.
Am I correct in remembering that if a first offender is fined, they could be fined less than $100 also?
Yes.
Anywhere from 0 to 100, no more
It's a
than
max.
100.
Yes, that's the way the ordinance is written. I know that Mr. Neckman stepped up here, so I think he might have something to say. If you all want, I do have copies of the uniform schedule
I would
that's
like
in
one.
force right now.
Sure.
So while Mr. Neckman's speaking, I'm going to go ahead.
We love handouts.
For those of you who don't know, I'm Brent Neckman, city prosecutor. One of the council members had asked a question
Thank
that
you,
I think
Judge.
I have input on that the judge does not. They asked what cases would be referred to state court for marijuana offenses. And I can tell you that on marijuana offenses, I very rarely, if ever, refer them to state court. They are always handled in municipal court. So the judge wouldn't know that. He doesn't make that decision. I'm the one that makes the decision whether to prosecute a case in city court or whether to transfer it to state court.
Is that or if it's like 500 grams, it's still you?
No, as the judge said, if it's under 35, if it's over 35 grams, the city court does not have jurisdiction to handle a case of marijuana over 35 grams.
Right.
Our ordinance only allows us to prosecute offenses 35 grams or under.
Okay. I have a couple more questions for you if nobody else has.
Let me just check with Christine. Christine, do you have any questions? Okay.
So I know we're talking about two solutions here. I just want to get into one that's clearly a potential third solution that I just wanted to bring up and ask you a couple questions on. We did have our legal review of what we're calling decriminalization. It's not really decriminalization, but it's basically lessening the penalties, especially the jail time on 35 grams or less. So part of my question is, we have a legal review here. We decided, I don't think we ever voted on it, but I'm curious, if the city decided to set 35 grams as a limit and take away the jail time on that, how would that affect what you do and how would it affect what we're talking about right now?
If I understand the question correctly, you're asking if the city were to amend the ordinance and remove jail time as a possibility for any offenses, including those over 10 grams. Is that what your question is?
Yes.
It wouldn't affect what I do any. I do not recommend jail time on marijuana offenses as a general rule.
Sure.
The judge has the option, if they have a conviction, if it's over 10 grams, to impose jail time.
Right.
But that's not a recommendation the city would make on a marijuana case that was run through municipal.
I mean, part of my concern is that someone has a prior offense, maybe even marijuana related, they come before you again, they come into this courtroom not really knowing they could be sent off to jail potentially or whatever time that would be. And I think that's concerning for somebody sitting at home for however many weeks waiting on their court case for something as, society starting to see as medical uses, et cetera, for something like marijuana and cannabis. So I guess the final question of detail I have about that is, if we looked at doing something like that, or at least voting on something like that, would we still need to get rid of it from the plead and pay and change it the way that I'm mentioning about the jail time too? Because it would still be coming to court to even for a fine, we'd still need to do what Judge Crump is asking for the plead and pay. Is that right?
Yes, the answer is, those two things don't have anything to do with the other. The plead and pay will not be impacted whether you have jail time or not have jail time.
Got it.
The issue is, for plead and pay is, it has to match up with the fine bureau schedule entirely, or
Sure.
you can't use the fine bureau.
Okay.
So, those two things have
Gotcha.
nothing to do with each other.
They don't have a relation in that way. The only reason I would say is that if we back that up and now they have to come to court and they're worried about going to jail, we are putting a little bit more burden on them. And so my thing is, if we're going to move this back in the direction of making people come here under the worry of weeks of wondering if maybe they had a prior offense and they're worried about they have to go to jail and worrying about their job and their kids and all that, we certainly could make it fairer and less worry for them by removing the jail portion and also maybe setting a specific fine that is in line with something that more and more the citizens are seeing as in line with drinking a beer, for example.
Well, I without getting into the policy question, that's for you to decide whether to do that.
Sure.
The answer is I don't think that would run afoul of the Oscar rule as far as the plead and pay goes. I think, as Mr. Thurman said, it's a separate issue from
Okay.
plead and pay versus the punishment.
And then the last question, just in question to the separate ordinance that's not part of the plead and pay. What is your input, or is there any issue from your end if there was a jail time removed and a specific fine set instead for that like we've had a legal review for?
You're asking if there'd be any input on prosecution?
Any issue for your department in any way, negatively, or make your job more difficult or anything like that?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Just to clarify, Mr. McMahon, have you ever recommended jail time on misdemeanor marijuana in state or municipal court?
The only time I would do that is if someone was incarcerated on other charges. And sometimes if someone's in on a charge, say they're in on a burglary charge, but they also have a marijuana ticket out there, if you impose a fine, you're making them pay a fine in addition to that jail sentence. Whereas if they're doing a jail sentence already and they say, I don't want to pay a fine, I'm broke, I'm poor, I get out, I'm not going to have a job, can I just do 10 days in jail instead? Not having that jail time as an option sometimes does hinder my ability to make a recommendation that's actually more lenient for them. And I know it does impact the judge as well because he can't impose a jail sentence. So sometimes when someone's in jail and you have to impose a fine, rather than give them credit for the time they've served, sometimes that actually does negatively affect them. That's the only time I would ever recommend a jail sentence for someone in on a marijuana charge.
And following up on that, if somebody doesn't show up for court like they're supposed to, a warrant gets issued for the arrest typically, correct?
That's correct. Eventually, yes.
So if a warrant were to, and you've already touched on it, but I've seen this in municipal court a number of times, where somebody gets a warrant, they go to jail, we find out about it, they go to jail on Friday, we don't find out about it till Monday. I'm normally inclined in that situation to recommend 2 days and counting with credit for the 2 days that they've already served, because I figure 48 hours was worse than anything I was ever intending to do to them to begin with. I can't do that if I'm the prosecuting attorney because it's, if it's fine only, correct?
That's absolutely correct. I cannot make a recommendation for a jail if it's not allowed by the ordinance.
So I've worked with you for a long time in state court, and I don't recall ever having any issues with jail time be a recommendation that you've made.
And my concern's not totally that. It is also just the fact that it's hanging over somebody's head for something like this just seems wrong. And that's more the point, that somebody could have to be worried about coming to court, especially now, because we're telling them you can't plead and pay. You have to come to court for this now. They're even more worried because it's like, I can't just plead and pay this. So my personal opinion is that I'm not comfortable rolling this back unless we're willing to at least vote on the fact that sensible marijuana ordinance.
Well, just so you understand, there are 3 options that I see that are available for the council. One of them is that you remove the section. If you don't remove this section, you have then to do one of 2 things. You either have to hire a full-time person to run the fine bureau, or you have to eliminate the entire marijuana ordinance. It's got to be one of those 3 things. Choosing to do nothing is actually a choice to do something. You don't have a choice of not doing anything and nothing happen. One of those 3 things will have to occur.
But you could remove the plead and pay from the marijuana at the same time on a separate ordinance, totally separate of this, make a vote on whether or not to remove jail time and change the amount of, at least that's what the conclusion I believe was.
I believe that you can eliminate jail time, but
Thus making it less of a worry for people coming, I guess is my point.
that is an option that's available, but that has absolutely no impact on what we're talking about.
Other than it does affect the way I see the issue, because I think it does matter to people that have to show up,
David.
who have to worry about jail time. That's my point. So they are interconnected even though they're not
Under
specifically
state law, if you get so under this ordinance, if first offense is a fine only of up to $100, correct?
That's correct.
Under state law, if you get a second offense, you can be fined up to $2,000 and spend up to 1 year in jail. So this actually gives you more flexibility because you can do less than what's required under state law. But right now, as it stands, if we remove jail time and it's a second offense, it could go state level, and then they're looking up to 1 year in jail.
But that would be handed off by our prosecutor, is that correct? To the state?
Or referred to the state by law enforcement.
Okay.
So you're actually potentially hurting the people you're trying to help.
You're also potentially helping some people. So, I mean, I guess it is for help.
Can I ask a question?
I think Council.
Okay.
Sorry, this is way off base, probably just opinion. none of this is an issue. Nobody should have to worry about jail time or a fine if they just don't do the marijuana.
That's true. Okay. I think the state at some point will legalize marijuana. Whether that's next year or the year after, I don't know. But in the interim, it seems to me, for a lot of reasons, that we should be consistent with the state. I think when we start to migrate either looser or stronger, there's where conflicts come in. That said, I'm not so sure if you queued up the state law and our law, where they're similar and where they're dissimilar. Could one of you do that? If we start at the premise and say, why aren't we just like the state? Where are we different, where are we the same?
Well, the fine that we use for first-time offenders is actually significantly less than what the state is. And Brad, correct me if I'm wrong, if from up to 10 grams for the state, there is no issue that comes in with regard to prior offenders, is that right?
No, you can have under 10 grams and charge them as a prior offender. Either prior offender or over 10 grams under state law is up to a year in jail and up to $2,000.
Okay.
10 grams.
So,
Doesn't matter the amount, just a prior offender
Yeah.
or over 10.
So if it's under 10 grams and there's no prior findings of guilt or in state court, because I have to know this because that limits my punishment I can do in my court too. Under 10 grams, or 10 grams, or is it 10 grams or under, or 10 grams?
10 grams.
10
10
grams.
grams or under, then it's a Class D misdemeanor, which means there's no jail time in state court either, no prior offenses.
that's what I was referring to.
Right.
If there's a prior offense or it's over 10 grams in state court, it's a Class A misdemeanor, $1,000 fine?
$2,000.
$2,000 fine and a year in jail. Now, we don't ever get that because,
Well, our maximum for notice violation second offense is 90 days in jail or a fine of $500. So our punishments for a second offense is much lower than the state's.
so, and the only thing I'm asking you all to consider is what do we do with, and I understand, I mean, this is not I'm staying out of this other policy issue because
Okay,
it's
so we
really
got,
not my job.
we got two things. We came to this meeting with one purpose, and that is to deal with the conflict that was presented to us. But based on your questions, David, and some of the emails we got today, there's an interest in looking at another aspect of it. So let's keep them separate and go down separate paths. So I guess I was looking for too simple an answer to say the state does this and the city does that. So for the next meeting, because we're not going to take action tonight anyway, could somebody succinctly put a T-chart there and say, here's the state and here's the city, and we're the same on quantity and jail and fine and all these things? Because I think we're going to get lost here if we don't understand what those similarities and dissimilarities are.
Well, I have no problem doing that. It's not a difficult thing to do. I can take our ordinance and I can take the state law. But again,
You still got to deal with this, I
Yeah.
get it, but I think there's some here that are not going to want to do one and not at least talk about the other. I don't want to put words in your mouth, David.
That's
but-
right.
Uh,
But I sense that that's what you're trying.
Talk about / vote on. Even if we decide, no, it's a no-go, we at least put it to a vote.
Right.
But Matthew asked for a suggestion of what council would do tonight. So if council wanted to just pursue an amendment based on the issues that Judge Crump raised, it would be a motion by city council to draft an ordinance to remove the second provision subset of subsection 30-16D4. That could be an ordinance drafted, considered first reading in 2 weeks. David's suggestion that we eliminate jail time isn't even an option for 35 grams or less. Could that be a part of that ordinance, or it could be a separate ordinance altogether?
Fine with that. Doesn't need to be tied together like Lance says. That really confuse it, but I do think it should be proposed, that's all.
and I want to be clear, I'm not saying that it shouldn't be considered. I'm just saying, don't conflate the two issues because there is urgency to do this now.
Sure.
Because you're about to lose your fine bureau, and when that happens, you're going to have 200 people coming to court every week.
Right.
Or every Tuesday night, every other Tuesday night,
3 Tuesday nights a week, and then we'll probably have about
and they're not going to be happy.
200 on Thursdays.
Sure.
It's not a question of not
We
prosecuting.
don't take questions from the floor. So, okay, does council want to take an action tonight, which is telling us to go prepare an ordinance to deal with the immediate thing at hand?
Yes.
Enough nodding of heads. Okay, so A, will do that. B, let's get some information together, come back to council at the next meeting and said, if you want to go down this other path, this is what that path will look like.
Right, and we do have the legal opinion, at least to start with, I guess?
Yes.
Yeah, great.
But I think we do want to get the public aware of the second issue too, though.
Sure, sure, and I know we've had a public hearing on that already, so I'm aware of that.
Okay. Anything else? Christine, any questions? Okay. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
I appreciate
Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for all answering questions.
Next item, claims on fiscal transactions. We have one. Chief Fagan.
What? This may take me a minute to explain because there's been a lot of misunderstanding going around, a lot of emails, a lot of calling for me to resign, saying that I should be fired because of this request. What I am passing around is a current ballistic helmet that every Rolla police officer has in their car since 2000. That ballistic helmet we got from the United States military.
Yeah, it looks like something.
The problem with it is it was manufactured in 1987. It is made out of Kevlar. Anybody who knows anything about Kevlar, over time Kevlar degrades. Our bulletproof vests are good for 5 years. After 5 years we have to replace them because the Kevlar in them degrades. These helmets were manufactured with the understanding that they would be recommended to be replaced after 10 years and absolutely not to be used after 15 years because they're no longer ballistically sound. What I am requesting is simply to replace these. Now, it got out all over social media and everything that I'm asking for riot helmets. Nothing could be further from the truth. Do we have riot gear? Absolutely. We've always had riot gear. It's always been in the trunks of our police car. Have we ever had to pull it out? Absolutely not. And I pray that we never will have to pull it out. These helmets are not just for riots. They are for active shooter incidents. They're for hostage situations that we go to. Anytime that there's a chance that an officer is going to get shot, which is why we have these. Now, the officers don't bring these out right now because they know they're just a heavy pot on their head that's not going to stop anything. These had face shields on them when we bought them. But over time, those face shields got old, yellow, cracked, and simply fell apart. This is what we're asking to purchase right here. It is not made out of Kevlar. It's made out of another material that does not degrade over time. The face shield will degrade over time. Probably 5 years, 10 years, we may have to replace the face shields on these, which is not a problem. Our SWAT team has these very helmets. We purchased them a few years ago. And we recently had a barricaded subject where we actually had to go in the house and get this guy who had a gun, was threatening to kill police officers. We had to call, thank God that 2 of the officers that were working were on the SWAT team and they had these upgraded helmets and were able to wear them when they went in the house. Now thank God they didn't have to use them, the helmets, by being shot at. We were able to take this guy peacefully. In the last couple of months in the state of Missouri, 2 highway patrolmen wearing these very helmets were shot in the head. And the helmets saved their lives. This is a helmet that I borrowed from a highway patrolman just to show you basically what we want to replace these with. This is not a new item. I'm not asking for anything new. I'm just asking that we replace outdated equipment. And why am I asking for this now? Because now I actually have some extra money that I can purchase them with. Nowhere in my budget will I be able to come up with a spare $15,000 to buy my guys these things. But because of COVID, I've got an extra $15,000 that I would normally use for training. And if I don't use this money by October the 1st, it's gone. It goes back into general funds and it can be used anywhere. There's no assurance that I will get that money back. So yes, I am spending training money, but it's training money that I have left over. Now let's talk about training here. Everybody's saying I should use this money for de-escalation training, for racial sensitivity training. We do that already. The state of Missouri mandates that every police officer once a year gets trained in de-escalation, gets trained in racial profiling, and gets trained in like sexual abuse, CID kind of things. So we already do that. Now I have a very large training budget, and that's the first thing I did when I started here 5 years ago, increased the training budget because I'm very big on sending people to training. This year, thank God, the Missouri Police Chiefs got a grant, and we're able to have every police department in the state of Missouri do training online. So, according to the state of Missouri, we can still keep our license. We're required every year to do 24 hours worth of continual training, which includes that de-escalation, racial profiling, and a few other things that are required. I probably have the most trained police officers in the state of Missouri because of the training budget that I have. And I use that budget every year to send my guys to training. I have guys that are specialties. I could name a list, but it's extremely long. As far as CIT goes, every one of the officers in Rolla are fully CIT trained. That's a 40-hour course. Only police department that has every officer trained in that. We started out with a 4-person CIT council. We now have the largest council in the state of Missouri, here in Phelps County. So to tell me that I need to spend this money on training is, I understand, but I don't lack anything in training as far as my officers go. They get trained. I never turn down a training request. If an officer sees a class he wants to go to and sends it to me, I will, 99% of the time, I will send it. Now, I'm not going to send an officer to Las Vegas for a card counting class, obviously. It has to be related to their job. But I do spend a lot of money on training because I think it's one of the most important things we could do as a police department. I've had people say that I need to be more transparent. I do not know how I could be more transparent with our community. I meet citizens every day. I talk to them every day. I talk to all of you as often as I can. I'm not trying to hide anything. I'm not trying to sneak something by everybody because I'm asking to buy these. I'm asking to buy these for my officer's safety. I know that we're not going to have a riot here in Rolla, but as I mentioned, the state of Missouri has a mutual aid system. If I get a call from Waynesville saying, we've got a riot going on, we need help, if they call what's called a Code 1000, I'm required to go there and assist them. And I want to send our officers down there, something like that, with equipment that may save their lives, not with that useless junk. They're going to get thrown away or given to kids. They're completely useless. Those right there, because they're made out of Kevlar. I just don't know how I can more explain why we need this and why I'm asking for it. And I know City Hall was just inundated with emails. All day today, I was talking to people in my lobby, talking to people in my room. I've been answering emails. I'm not going to resign, I'm telling you that right now. You have to get rid of me. Good. It was a very poorly written thing when we put it on the agenda to say we want to buy riot helmets. Can they be used for riots? Absolutely. We should have just said ballistic helmets. And like I said, it's not something new. We're replacing equipment that we already have. We had a very peaceful march here a few months ago. Everyone that was at that march had this equipment in their car. We had the shields. We got the 6-foot wooden sticks. We have all that equipment. We didn't bring it out. We didn't need to bring it out. And I hopefully will never have to bring it out. But that being said, I'm the only police officer in Florissant who's actually had to deal with protests that have turned violent, and they turn violent with the snap of a finger. And every one of those that I've been involved in where we had to make arrests, the people we arrested were not from the city where the riot was happening. They're coming from out of town. They're agitators trying to start problems. I have no doubt that the people in Rolla, if they protest, are going to protest peacefully. No doubt about that. My concern is people coming from out of town because they hear there's a protest here and they're going to take the opportunity to do some violence. That is the only time that you would see us put this kind of gear on, and that is if we had to form a line. It's hopefully, I pray to God that we never have to do that. I pray to God that you will never see our officers removing any of this from the trunks of their cars. If you do, you're at the scene of crime where somebody's got a gun and they're threatening to kill us. So we're going in there to save somebody who's being held at gunpoint. That's the only time you're going to see these. So by us saying that we're riot helmets, very, very poor way to put that out there. They're not riot helmets, they're ballistic helmets. They're replacing old ballistic helmets. It's not new equipment. And like I said, it's equipment that I pray will never have to come out of our police cars. Any questions? Yes.
Thank you, Chief. Carolyn?
How long are these expected to last?
These do not expire. So
Ever?
forever. Now the face shields, we're going to get 5 to 10 years out of the face shields because being in the trunk of a car, they yellow, they crack. But the helmets themselves, they're not made out of Kevlar. They're made out of a polymer that they say doesn't expire like the Kevlar.
Unless the bad guys have different kind of
Well,
bullets. Because the technology can change on that side.
These literally, two highway patrolmen were shot, one of them driving his car. Now, why in the world he had a helmet on driving his car? He must have had a premonition. As he was driving, somebody shot through his passenger window and it hit right in the side of his helmet. Saved his life. Another one was actually on the line down in St. Louis City of a protest and was shot in the helmet. Saved his life. Yes?
You think how many helmets will this buy?
It's going to buy a helmet for every officer that we have, commissioned officer, so it'll be 37. Every one of us now have one of these helmets. I've got a newer one because I acquired one at the riots down in Ferguson, and that's the one I have right now. Mine doesn't have a face shield on it because since then the face shield is rotted and cracked. I'm taking it off, but I already have a helmet just like this one here, so I'm the only one we're not going to be buying one for.
Okay.
Jody?
So please tell me that that one is lighter than that thing?
Not really.
Really?
This is actually, with the face shield and everything, it's heavy. But this one has a lot of cushion on the inside here.
Okay.
That one
I was
there.
going to say, that's a weapon in and of itself.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Chief? Christine, any questions?
Yes.
Ann?
I just want to, I think in part, because of the protesting we've been seeing nationwide, clubbing of individuals and tear gas being thrown at crowds, that's hurt America far more than the injuries that have incurred with these repercussions for protesters. I think it's just the dismay and alarm to everybody, myself included, has just kind of rocked everybody's soul in this country. So I've talked to people today too, read a lot of things today, but I think our direction, we need to, we have to protect our police. But I think our direction, we need to attempt to assure citizens and that our officers are doing their peacekeeping mission in our community. They're not, people are afraid of the police, and it's unfortunate. Their role is to be peacekeepers, and that's what their job is. They're not protest disbanders. But with that said, there are many areas are looking at ways that communities can interact with their police departments, that maybe more services can be. I know years ago, we had a neighborhood watch association. Our police officer would come into our neighborhood and talk with residents, about things, watch out for things. And, we don't really get to know our policemen these days unless it seems to be in a ticketing situation. And people are so fearful now that, it's just very, very unfortunate. And it's a sad day, I think. And we don't want that here in Raleigh.
Oh, I understand,
Yeah.
and
I just want to remind everyone, but, part of what you've experienced is due to not having the resources to hire and pay. So for a period of time, we had, correct me if I'm wrong, only 2 road officers on duty at any point in time through the city.
cover the entire city.
Cover the entire
2 road
city.
officers and 1 supervisor.
Right.
But-
So, passing of the tax, the law enforcement sales tax here in October, I guess it was, is really important. It's allowing us, we're on the cusp of now being able to spend that money.
That's vital.
The other thing I'll mention, and Chief alluded to it a little bit, but Jody asked me some questions last month, similar topics. So I believe in August, the idea was to have Chief make a presentation as to the level of training we have and the policies and procedures. So the question is, when is, do we use chokeholds, which we don't. But some of those use of force type questions, and he will make a presentation on that.
Yeah, we have completely, once again, rewritten our use of force
Yeah.
policy.
And they're very well written. I read them over the weekend, very well written.
We tried to address everything.
Yep.
A lot of police departments tell their officers to be warriors. I'm more of a, we should be guardians. That's the job of the police. We're not out there, my guys are not out there looking for arrest. We have no kind of a police system. A guy can go his entire career and not write a ticket, and that's really not going to make any difference now. We ask them to do their jobs, and, if they do it, they have to do it, but we are not out looking
Right.
to cause any trouble. You will not see my policemen walking around with these shields and these helmets on, unless it's necessary. And if it's necessary and you see it, you're going to also see a policeman telling you to get back because you're going to be in a danger zone. There's really nothing more I can say about this. Like I said, it was very poor wording on the part that we said we were buying riot helmets. They're not riot helmets, they're ballistic helmets that we use. And our officers, lately, in the last couple of years, we've had a lot of instances where we could have had these, used these at the scene, myself included. Any other questions?
So just my point, so we'll circle back in August to answer some of those other questions.
Anybody want to see, you want me to pass this around?
Deanna, go ahead.
Just how wonderful it is.
I'll take it.
Deanna, do you have a question?
Yes, I was just saying that I agree with Ann, that we do have to consider where we're moving as a community. But like I said earlier today to you, I also appreciate the changes that you have made compared to the previous administration. My main issue here, though, is this is training funds. And for me, as a previous teacher, once a year training, we do need to be doing it more often, because the more we're trained, the more we're practicing, the more we can prevent these things. So for me personally, my issue is that this does come from training funds, not from equipment funds.
But like I said,
And we do have the tax coming up, or the funds coming up, just like the mayor pointed out.
Those tax proceeds are much needed to address the compensation. I mean, that was the founding reason for that. And then shortly after that, it was to migrate into, and they'll have to decide if it's equipment, training, whatever. But we have a compensation problem, and that has to be addressed first.
I agree. And I just wanted to make it clear that the citizens' resolution that I saw that was put forward does not call for your resignation. So just to be clear on that, I think you're doing a much better job than the last administration.
which is very,
I thought I needed the riot helmet tonight.
Yeah, exactly. You got it coming around to you? or-
And Chief, I think, oh, I'm sorry.
Terry?
Thank you for the clarification on it. I
quite
really appreciate it.
Chief, I think worth pointing out is the only reason the training dollars weren't spent is that training is we're sending guys away, in some cases a long way away.
Yes, to in classroom training.
Right. We will, our new fiscal year starts October 1, we'll refund training, and we'll be pushing all of those opportunities for even more training next year. It's just there is no training that we could, in essence, be sending people to
In fact,
for about a
the
6-month
next
period.
training that our officers are going to be able to go to is SRO training, and that is the beginning of next month. That is the actual first class in class that has been opened up for officers to go to, and I've got 3 officers going to that, so. Yes, sir.
So how much money are we looking at that we're going to have almost because of the lack of not ability to go train? Is this the maximum amount here, or is it another?
No, that's how much the helmets cost. We have $21,000 left in training.
Okay.
So I'm not spending all of my training money. I know that I cannot spend that amount of money before the next budget, so like I said, I've been wanting to replace these since I've been here. I've just never had the funds, and now I have the opportunity. And let me say one thing, a lot of people are saying the timing is terrible with everything that's going on, but everything that's going on is what actually made us look at the equipment that we've got. You know, I really don't expect any problems here in Rolla, but you know, when I look over the calls for the last year, the calls that actually involve firearms, that actually involve violence, you know, and I'm looking at this equipment, I'm like, we just got to do it. And like I said, I looked at my budget now, because it comes to the time where it's either use it or lose it. And I see that excess, and I thought, you know, maybe now we can finally replace those helmets we've got in our cars. Yes, sir.
Chief, you know, I came in tonight expecting that I would vote no on this just because I didn't like the direction I felt it was going, and I appreciate the clarification tonight, and I wanted to keep an open mind, and I think you've convinced me that these are necessary. I guess my question is, how was it that you decided on ballistic helmets as opposed to something like a body camera or other types of items?
I actually looked into body cameras last month. That's something that I've always wanted for our police department. The problem is that a body camera would cost $16,000 a year for us to get them, because the body cameras, right now, the really only reliable body camera is by Axon, which is the same people that sell us tasers. They have us, it costs $101 per month per officer. And for that, you get a body camera, you get a taser, and it stores everything in the cloud. Other body cameras right now don't provide storage, and to store body cameras for as many officers as we got is just, the price would break bank. Coming up with $16,000 extra a year right now is, budgets are tight right now, and it's very hard to come up with that money. There's going to be a day when I'm going to get body cameras, no doubt about that.
Amen.
It's just that right now, the city simply can't afford it. And I would rather see my officers get a little bit more pay. You know, it's embarrassing when a starting police officer makes $16.10 an hour, which is where we are right now.
And what do the officers make in St. Louis? Roughly.
Well, my old department, a starting police officer starts out at $62,000 a year. We start out at $32,000.
So we have some of the best trained officers making the least amount of money.
What we have is dedicated people that are dedicated to this community, not leaving.
Absolutely.
Which is, you know, and I want to state, for the first time since I've been here, it looks like we're going to be fully staffed. Well, that's I have 2 people getting ready to retire, so I'll be fully staffed for a month.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Chief?
Well, you say you got a lot of comments and statements to you. Are you feeling a little bit more encouraged after coming here and talking to us? Do you feel?
I'm just trying to decide if I want to respond to all the emails. I would do it very respectfully, just because people are saying.
Let me be the bad guy here, Chief, because you're going to end on a positive note. The emails that have been coming in today are atrocious. They are mean, they are personalized, number one. Number two, and number three, it was all initiated because somebody did not understand what we were trying to do tonight. So I think, frankly speaking, there's a lesson learned here.
And I take 100% credit for the misunderstanding by having riot helmets put on.
The fact that you used the word riot should not have precipitated those kind of emails, Chief. They're nasty. Some of them are downright.
I know that. I know that.
So, you know, there's a lesson here. People should get the facts, understand what's before them. Then if you want to go to social media, then if you want to get all your friends to pack the room, that's fine. But you, and I'm not saying you, I'm not picking you in general, you is very collectively.
You know,
but some of these emails were not called for.
And I want to be transparent. I will talk to any council person anytime. I'll talk to citizens anytime. Any group that wants me to come and speak. I mean, that's a big part of my job. And you know, and I answer their tough questions. You know, sometimes they don't like the answers, but a lot of times, like in this, for instance, it's a complete misunderstanding. And it's just, you know, let me try to explain it. And that's why I've taken so long up here, and I appreciate your letting me do that. But I wanted to explain exactly what I was asking for.
Visuals help.
I think Christine has a question.
Any other questions for
Christine has one.
Yeah.
Christine?
Yes, I just wanted a quick clarification here. First of all, Chief, like Matthew Carl, I came here with the idea of voting no, but your explanation is much more detailed than the original explanation. So I thank you for that. I just wanted to make sure that I know in the school district, you know, everything has its little pot, and you can't spend PD dollars for other things. So I just wanted to double check and make sure that this is a legal thing to do, that we can put our money into buying this equipment, which seems to be necessary in terms of replacing something old and outdated.
The answer to that is yes, we are okay.
Okay.
There are buckets, as you said, Christine, but those buckets are at a higher level. There's general fund buckets and fiduciary funds and things like that. At that level, there's restrictions, but not necessarily within the department.
Circling back to the body cams really quick, you said it'd be about $16,000 or so a year?
$1,000 a year.
So why are we not looking into funding that this year right now and then trying to figure out how we fund it next year? Because for me, if we're going to fund this using training funds...
Because when you do it, you have to sign a contract. And I cannot sign a contract for 3 years knowing that the money might not be there. We have the money now. Yes, we could do it for a year. We could do it for this year. But this COVID has hurt the city financially wise. So I don't know if that money is going to be there next year or the year after. And I have to sign a contract saying we're going to do it for 3 years minimum.
So then to you, Mayor, we talked about the commissioners the last time we were all here. Could that funding at all be used for that? Considering it is being
COVID
used...
funds?
Well, we're using excess training funds due to COVID is what this says.
No, that we
I
have
think
the
you're
access
mixing that up a bit.
because of COVID. That's the
Yeah.
only reason why we have it.
There's another
So for
thing
this, could we-
that occurred prior to you coming here. This issue of signing a contract long-term. The sitting council at that time, when we talked about the need for the funds associated with the sales tax, the online shopping tax, whatever you want to call it, the council at the time got a 10-year projection on what is needed for what we call public safety, which is not only police, fire, and associated. When you look out 10 years, first of all, we don't know how much money is going to come in from that tax. In fact, we just got our first check here on June the 8th. So even if we went optimistic, the cold, hard reality is, as you look out past year 3 or 4 or 5, we don't have enough money to even fund some of these other things that we would like to have associated with those departments. So the idea is to prioritize in the short term. Let's just say that's 1 to 3 years. Number one, it'll give us a chance to establish a pattern as to how much that tax will actually generate in hand, address the compensation issue, which was broken down into A, getting fully staffed, and then B, compensating our offers properly, and then anything else is available based on their recommendations and your decisions, whether that's training or body cameras or anything else for that matter. So there's kind of a priority tree, and that's what that tree looked like. So they're all good points, but I think what Chief is saying is, at this point in time, to sign a multi-year contract, not knowing some of those things, was a little cautious.
I
There's a good
understand
chance
that.
that the state of Missouri is going to mandate it soon. I know there's legislation asking for it, and if they mandate it, then they have to help fund it. So I'm kind of waiting when that happens, and then I will have to have them. Every police department in Missouri will have to have. But it's just, for a city the size of Rolla, it's extremely expensive for us to do something like that.
Okay.
And they
Well,
break, right? Every time there's a scuffle, one probably breaks, so
Yes.
It's an expensive proposition.
And don't forget, the use tax was for police, but also for fire. So we're at 65 people that's addressing. The other key equipment needs, the total replacement of all of our portable and mobile radios for every police officer, firefighter, and every vehicle. It's about an $850,000 expense that even then we're looking at, can we pay that off on the financing for 6, 7, 8 years to just have this use tax pay enough to cover compensation and equipment. So it can all be done. It's just going to be, where's it all fit in the priority listing? And we're going to be in the budget in a month and a half from now, and we'll be talking about these very issues.
Okay, again, thank you for your demonstration. It's just for me, I do understand like the use of training funds, so that's the only hang up I have.
Don't forget, now that we're fully staffed again, we've started our monthly training, and a big part of training is half of the training is spent on policies and the other half on whatever we're set to train for that day. So everybody's going to be receiving monthly in-house training in the police department.
Okay, is there a motion to award the bid for the ballistic helmets to Keesler Police Supply?
Is there a time for discussion again before?
After
we
the
vote?
second motion,
Okay.
Lister's going to remind me. Is there a second yet?
Second.
Second, okay. Any questions or comments?
Okay. I had one more thing. It wasn't a question for Chief. It was just I feel, I have very great respect for Chief, and I've always been very impressed with his willingness to sit down with me, ask questions, answer questions. So I have a great respect for Chief. I do agree that there was some miscommunication about these helmets, especially the language that talked about civil unrest associated with protests turning violent. And I just wouldn't feel right if I didn't kind of read some prepared remarks based on citizen feedback. I'm not totally against the helmets, but I do want to share a little bit of this. So with the amount of negative feedback that I've received from the public on this issue, I suggest we hold off on voting on the helmets right now. While I see and hear what Chief has told us, we have seen an amount of public input on this issue, unlike I've seen on other issues. I've received phone calls and emails all day about the topic. I'm also concerned about the fear that our citizens are expressing about the issue, especially as it was discussed in our agenda related to peaceful protests turning violent. This language comes on the heels of a very successful solidarity march that included protesters interfacing with RPD through the use of police liaisons. This march was completely peaceful and was one in which the majority of this body took part. I have friends on the police force, and it's unimaginable that they would be forced to face off against Raleigh citizens at a peaceful protesting gear like this. The collective blood pressures of officers and citizens go up when this type of gear is used, increasing the likelihood of a conflict or unfortunate event. I think the timing of the request and the language of the request is what our citizens are reacting to. This being said, after hearing Chief explain the issue more clearly, there are good reasons that could justify having the helmets and safety reasons for our officers. But the optics to the Raleigh public at this time are not good. I think we should consider tabling the issue for the moment. In the meantime, work on clarifying our written language and intent of the use of the equipment. More importantly, I believe the public would like to see an outline of exactly when and where this equipment could be used. I think it would also serve the public for Chief Fagan to share a full list of the relevant trainings that he already is doing with his officers, that helps to equip officers with tools for de-escalation and community policing. In addition, I would be interested to see an outline for how we will increase peacemaking tools within our force in the future. Some of the topics I would like to see include, some of these I know we are doing, but just to be able to go over these and what we could add to: crisis intervention, racial bias, homelessness, increased use of CIT and community-based policing, body cameras, which we just discussed, opioid addiction awareness, conflict resolution, mental health awareness, a shared safety council of civilians and professionals, and PTSD counseling resources for our RPD staff. I believe we also should review ideas that other cities have that are designed to relieve stress on the police. Instead of the police or fire departments responding to 911 calls related to inebriation, homelessness, addiction, mental health, personnel made up of social workers, housing and homeless specialists, and violence prevention coordinators could be deployed to fill these roles that are currently putting undue stress on our officers. At this time in history, there seem to be two clear paths in moving forward. We can further militarize our police, putting officers and citizens in greater danger, or we can make changes within our force that broaden our toolkit and allow our forces to de-escalate situations to avoid the use of these kinds of military-like equipment as much as possible. I want to protect our officers, the best way to do that is to provide them with the widest range of tools in their toolkit. This allows them to work smarter, not harder, or more forcefully, instead diffusing difficult situations through dialogue and de-escalation. I will continue pushing for more training and necessary salary increases for our hardworking and underpaid RPD staff, as well as encouraging our police to use tools that lower tension, raise the likelihood of positive outcomes, and provide a safer community for citizens and officers alike. So what I'm proposing is that we consider waiting on the procurement. Also, like I said, for me, it's partly in respect for the citizen feedback I've gotten. I think just the language of what we had on the agenda really got people fired up. And like I said, it's not that I'm trying to say we don't need these helmets, but I wonder if, for example, when we have the August presentation on policies, if that might be a better time to get a clarity on the policies, get a clarity on the language of what our use and potential use for these are, and then it would still be well before August 1st, which would, the money needs to be spent by August 1st, is that right?
September 30th.
September 30th. So choose a date that's well before that to have this presentation that would allow the public also. Like I said, I'm really doing this. I think Chief has done a good job of explaining, but I also think the public wouldn't mind probably, after the way this was written, having a little bit more presentation on those policies, like the mayor mentioned. So I'm just making a suggestion that we don't specifically turn it down as much as wait to have that clarity for the public.
David, I can't resist to disagree with you on a couple of points.
Sure.
When I look at the emails that came in, there were obviously a large portion of them scripted, okay? There's no way the 25 emails all looked and sounded exactly the same. The term militarizing our police department, you talk about sensationalism, and that's what it is. If people would have just took a minute to listen on the purpose of this helmet, instead of assuming it was for riots.
Civil unrest associated with protests that turn violent. That's what the
I'm gonna get
language
to that.
says. That's what people were reading.
But I don't think Chief made any reference to militarizing our police department, which is not. That's editorializing, and that is sensationalizing needlessly, okay? So the lesson for this group up here is get the facts first. That's number one. The second of all,
Give the facts, right?
we keep talking about the protest, and let me tell you, the protest that occurred in Rolla couldn't have been any better. I sent a note. I don't know who the organizers were, but I funneled it through Maria. You couldn't have organized a better event. The concern isn't those people. The concern are the other ones. Somebody that's going to come in and be overzealous. Somebody that's going to come to town to cause trouble. Let's not forget, there were guns on the street at that protest. Not necessarily by the peaceful protest, but by others. It takes one bad comment, one short temper to cause a problem. So let's look at the protest not just through one set of eyes. And it's a good set of eyes. I get it. It was a great protest. But you have to don't be naive. There are elements out there that could escalate a situation quickly.
Right.
So the purpose of these helmets is not specific for that. I get that. But to lump all of this in, I think is a mistake.
At no time would peaceful protesters in Rolla ever see this equipment.
I mean,
and in the thing, it said peaceful protests that turn violent. If they turn violent, shots start being fired, bricks start being thrown, absolutely they're going to put them on. I'm not going to lie, because they have to protect themselves. But that is the only time that those will come out in a situation like that, in a protest situation. They're more likely, 10 times more likely, to be worn on dangerous calls that our officers receive.
Sure, and that's why I want to be fair. That I don't think denying the helmets from the police department is necessarily smart either, but like I said, our citizens were concerned, I think, with, like I said, civil unrest associated with protests that turn violent. It sounded like protests, for example, that we recently had turning violent. That's what got people in their mind. And I want to respond to what the mayor said. In terms of the scripted, I noticed that a number of the emails, potentially half, out of the probably 30 emails that I got, were scripted. Someone must have sent out an idea of what, hey, here's an idea of what we want other people to send. But I read at least half of emails that were very kind. At the end, they ended in a very very reasonable tone of, we appreciate all that you're doing. Thank you for considering our comments, from at least 10, 15 people that I could tell had spent a half hour writing this. So it's not like, I don't want to discount the citizens just because, well, I don't agree with them, so I'm going to discount them, or you don't agree with them, so you should discount them. I'm also saying that I've gotten more feedback, more emails, and more phone calls on this issue today than any other one I've ever gotten on council. I've been here almost 4 years. So my point is, I'm saying these things out of a voice for the citizens who did see this and didn't like it, and my concern tonight is we pass it tonight. I feel like we're disrespecting our citizens in a way that no matter what feedback we get, no matter what they're mentioning to us, we'll just go straight on. And I understand we're elected here. Just because we get comments doesn't mean we have to listen to any of it, but I could tell there's a concern within our community, and I think having some of this presentation on policies would go a long way for me, but also for our community to feel like, hey, because I actually, like I said, I talked to you before. He helped me clarify a few things today for sure. He's on a lot of these things. He's on a lot of these, like he said, he's investigating the cameras already. I think laying that out for the citizens before we get this equipment is going to make our community more comfortable. That's my only point. And I think I'm ready to do that next meeting. I mean, I'm ready to, if we can get those policies ready at next meeting, we can talk about what's the intent and use of these and how they would be used. I'm comfortable going forward there, but I do feel like for all the comments I got, I would be not doing my job if I didn't ask that we take a little more time and get a little more information. Just like I said, Chief can present what he's already got, which is an awful lot of quality things he's doing that's different than most departments, and I think that would make people feel better. It's not that I'm trying to say we can never have these helmets, and they don't have places that, you know, besides a violent protest, there's places like Chief mentioned to me, you know, active shooters at schools and stuff. Like, last thing I want to see is our police not have the ability to do that. But I do think making sure our citizens feel comfortable that we're doing it in a, you know, under a framework that is making them feel comfortable and not in a bunch of fear, which apparently some of this did for them. I think we could rewrite the language of this. We could more specify the intent and do a little bit presentation on policies, and I'm going to feel a lot more comfortable with it. That's my thing. I'm not trying to say we shouldn't do it. So
I just want to say also that if we order them tomorrow, if this gets approved and we order them tomorrow, it's 6 months to a year before we will get them.
Right.
Because of everything that's going on, they are on such back order.
Right, and we've had these ones since '92 or whatever it is. I feel like if we went another 2 weeks or month just to try to get a little more of this information, it doesn't seem like a huge extra.
I just can't see any more information that I haven't given tonight.
I guess I'm more like laying it out for the public also, I guess is my thing. But-
So tomorrow I could expect 35 emails from all these people that say, hey, Mayor, good job. There was a good explanation by the chief. And by George, I'm behind you buying these helmets.
I mean, I think even the writing within the actual commentary here could be changed for the next time and a little more clarity. I mean, it seems pretty bad if we're going to pass something that starts with civil unrest associated with protests that turn violent. That's what triggered our citizens.
Can we also
It
be
says,
clear
it
that
doesn't
this...
say Rolla. It says, in recent years, our society has a significant, now, I don't know, I look at the news every day, seems like half the damn country's burning. So I don't understand what the issue is as this is written. It didn't say Rolla has citizen unrest. It says our society.
We're preparing for that in Rolla because, I don't know, we just had a protest that maybe presented possibility that, I don't know, that's how people took it. Because there was just a protest, and I think Chief even mentioned, that got even the police thinking about, hey, do we have the gear we need?
Could we also be clear that in these emails that there's a call for a civilian oversight board and a shared safety council? So it's not just about the helmets. There was more than that, and it goes deeper than that. There was a complete civilian-made policing resolution that was submitted.
So I
have
feel,
a civilian review board.
I feel like the chief did a very good job tonight of clearing up the misinformation that went out. And I have a feeling that people who are interested in this either are watching, are here, or will find out what happened. And to me, what the chief has told us is that he's doing his job of risk management by looking at his 20-year-old equipment that will no longer keep his officers safe, and he's taking advantage of some extra funds to replace that. I think we can do that tonight with the clarifications that he has made for us about what those things are used for. which basically in our case has been active shooters and hostage situations, and not necessarily people running amok in protest situations.
Thank you.
So I say we should go forward with the motion that's on the floor.
Lister, did you have a question before? Any other comments before we vote? All in favor for the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
No.
Christine, will you raise your hand so I know if it's an aye, an aye? Okay.
Good eye.
I think the record shows 1 day or 2. Who are the 2?
Do it by hand, that way you can keep a clean record.
Okay. All in favor of the motion signify by saying, or raising their hand. Okay. All opposed signify. Let the record show 2. Thank you, Chief. Good job. Open citizen communication, we have one scheduled. Comments regarding ordinance 4566. Ms. Snodgrass.
I live at 1113 Murray Lane. Honestly, the first thing I was going to come and do this evening was just talk to the council about, I've spent a lot of time in the past 2 months talking to small businesses about how they've been impacted by COVID. And I continued to do that again. Honestly, I didn't continue it last week because it was 4th of July, and quite frankly, I have 3 kids who were in much dire need of my time. So I spent a lot of my time last week doing that, just spending time with them. But the people I did talk to were thankful for the amendments made at the last meeting on the 15th. So I appreciate that. I would also encourage you to continue to hopefully move forward. I know that the cases have jumped up in the recent weeks because of a Great Circle outbreak. But I do still feel that we're still moving in the right direction. And so I would encourage you to continue moving forward, and let's hope to not move backwards. Your small businesses still need you, and I'm begging and pleading with you to reach out to them, not the other way around. I think that they deserve that. I have lived in Rolla my entire life, and I think that for a long time we have fought to keep our small businesses here and not out of town, and not to drive our business out of town. And I think that COVID has done a good job of that. I think we're gaining foothold again, and I think that the amendments made at the last meeting, again, did that, but like I said, I want to move forward. I do want to address Mr. Schott, because I find it ironic that you want to have the public's opinion on things such as police safety and not COVID. Can I ask, have you ever been involved in an active shooter?
I have not.
I've been involved in 2. I can tell you that I'm pretty thankful that our police officers were there to protect me on both occasions. So the fact that you would vote no on that is infuriating to me.
Okay.
And I think you should probably make sure that you have the say of a majority of citizens in Rolla, because it seems to me that maybe you're not doing that.
Okay. I can say for COVID, I've been getting responses on both sides. I'm trying to weigh that. So if you want to see my email inbox from today, I can show you the number. I didn't get one person on the other side of the issue, so.
Well, I have lots of people on the other side of the issue, so we could debate that if you'd like.
Right, and I agree that the email is just 100 emails from coming on something, doesn't always explain true public opinion. That's hard to do, and sometimes the best way to do it is through election of people polls to make decisions for the public. So I totally understand
I
that.
certainly agree with that.
Thanks.
But I would ask that, again, you go out and talk to the people of Rowlett, not expect them to come to you, because that's probably not going to happen. There's a running theme with this small businesses of Rowlett, and it's a direct quote. That didn't come from me, that came from me talking to them, that says that the city council doesn't care about small businesses in Rowlett at all.
Sir, let me just, and thank you for your comments, and I do truly appreciate them. For each of the proposed ordinances, before council acted on each one of them, there were numerous conversations with the chamber and with the president of the Downtown Business Association. So frankly speaking, they had input on every one of those before even council even saw a rough draft. So just be aware of that. Now,
And I am
they have their representatives, obviously the ones downtown in the chamber, but
But are you aware that many of the small businesses are even scared to speak out? And that's what I'm getting going, speaking to the owners of the small businesses directly.
that could be.
I'm not saying you were wrong, I'm not saying you are
That
wrong,
could be.
but I'm saying I'm going and speaking to them face to face. And if they're telling me that they're scared to speak out, they don't want repercussions, and they don't feel like city council is,
Yeah. I don't
Caring
understand what
about them?
potential repercussions there would be, though. If a business owner felt that whatever the clause was too restrictive, they would want to speak out. What would be the retribution?
well, for some of the bars that they felt that their licenses could be revoked. For other businesses such as salons or barbershops, they felt that their licenses, they could be in contact with the state boards and have those licenses revoked. That's their businesses and then
Okay.
employee. So I just want to make you all aware of what the small businesses are saying, and hopefully that will help you to continue to move forward. So that's really all I have for tonight. I plan to continue to be in touch with all of those small businesses, and hopefully we can keep moving forward.
Speaking on what she said, I did, when I was out campaigning, talk to individuals in my community, and two of them were business owners, small business owners, and they were concerned that if they came out and said something, that the percentage of the public who was very, for tighter restrictions, that there was going to be a backlash like that. So that's not necessarily us, but I know that was some of the fear. If they made an issue one way or the other, that they would drive a wedge between their customers.
It's a tough situation.
Yeah.
I can tell you in all the weeks, and John will verify this, all of the interactions that we had with City Hall, there was no, that I can see, majority opinion, and frankly speaking, I'm not even sure we ever got to consensus opinion, and I think as evidenced by the close votes that the city council took. There are people that just, because of philosophy, I'll call it the libertarian side, just didn't want anybody to tell them anything. And nothing I'm here to say is criticizing. That was one group. There's another group that believes that COVID is a hoax. There's another group that believes it's potentially serious, but it's not here yet. So when it comes, then come and talk to me and I'll put something in place. Then there's another group of people that are saying, yeah, you're about right, and yet another group that says you're not doing enough, okay? And as I looked at it, because I put straw figures and say, which bucket does all these people go into, it's pretty evenly distributed, which really makes it a very, very difficult decision for the city, and I think as council persons too. It's not easy. It's not
I'm
easy.
not saying that it's easy. I'm not saying that it's an easy job for any of you. I'm just asking, and again, like I said, begging and pleading, please get out there and talk to your businesses and residents, because from when I'm speaking to them, they're saying, no one's coming to talk to us, no one's coming to see how we're doing, no one's checking on us, and I think that that's a big part of your jobs as city council members, is they shouldn't have to reach out to you. It should really be the other way around, and I understand that you all have lives. I also have a full-time job and 3 children and a husband, but I took the time to go and talk to these people. So I'm asking you, begging you, pleading with you, go check on them, see how they're doing. I don't think that's a lot to ask.
Okay,
That's really
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other citizen comments? Daniel?
Evening, council.
Good evening.
Good evening, council. Before I begin, let me thank you for your service to our community. It's met with gratitude tonight on my end. I'm here because once again, this administration has a chance to make a difference in a positive way to a large populace of Rollo. The folks who choose to partake in a non-toxic plant that's been publicly accepted across the nation. Tonight, you're being asked to remedy a mistake. The administration's given you 2 options to remedy that. One's the option to fix the mistake and continue to penalize cannabis users. The other's to hire more court staff to combat the problem of them being overrun. What they did not put in your packet tonight to help with these issues is option 3, decriminalization. Rolla is a progressive community that overwhelmingly, almost 70%, voted in favor of medicinal marijuana. Those same citizens that voted in also understand a couple more things. Some people cannot take the legal road of getting a medical marijuana card. Some folks are still living with the stigmas and false fears that criminalizing cannabis for so long bring. Some folks simply cannot afford the card. Some folks have reservations about being on a government list. These people still have ailments. These people still use cannabis. Prohibition of cannabis has never proven to work. Criminalizing it hasn't either. Your constituents told you what they thought of criminalizing cannabis. Whether or not you agree, the folks who voted for you are not wanting to put people in harm's way over a bag of pot. Decriminalize small possessions of cannabis. Stop harming people for possessing under 35 grams. If you think 35 grams is a lot, it honestly is not. For some people, it isn't a bag of pot. It's ingredients to a batch of cookies that stop their tremors. Or it's a soon-to-be tincture to battle a lupus flare-up. Counselor Boland, you said the simple answer is to not do marijuana. I have to do marijuana or my PTSD will do me. I have to take marijuana or it will take me. Some people don't have that legal road. I caution you to urge less humor when I'm talking about medicine and people that use it.
Wasn't humor.
I didn't think it was funny either. I'm glad we see eye to eye on that. Your constituents told you that. We have 1,300 Phelps County cardholders who could afford to come forward in a brave new world of legalization. There are thousands more in this area who are hindered for one reason or another. They're hindered, but they are not criminals. It's time to spread a brand new message. It's time to change this silly conversation to something more important, like how do we stop our kids from dying from opioids, and how do we save our village from real demons. You have an opportunity to help your constituents. You voted to move forward with review of decriminalization, and only 2 council members dissented. One's not here tonight. I urge him to please think a different path than he thought before. Please stop harming cannabis users by criminalizing our culture. It isn't for everyone, Counselor Boland, but it is not a crime. It simply never was. To Chief Fagan, you have two of your officers retiring. My industry and my community, thank them for what they've done for our community and for what they'll continue to do in their afterlife after the police. My people, we thank you for what you guys do. And as always, to those officers that are retiring, I offer them one thing. They're probably going to have PTSD and probably have some physical ailments. If they want to choose a non-toxic path and they want to come do marijuana with me, tell them to come see me at my shop. I'll get them legaled up for free. Thank you, guys.
Any others? Yes, sir. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record. There's 2 hands, I saw.
My name is Thomas Maples. I'm a constituent of Ward 1. I first off came out here tonight because, like a lot of people, I was a little bit misinformed about what happened with the wording according to the ACHs, the combat helmets that we have back here. Chief Fagan, you did a great job explaining that. I appreciate it. Wish that had never happened. This all could have been avoided. There would have been no emails. First off, I didn't send any emails. I'm really lazy. Get me out here is saying something. I was going to come unglued. I do not want to militarize police force. I was in the military for 6 years. I've seen a lot of things, okay? And you know what, Miss Boland? Cannabis helped me get off of drugs. The drugs that the Army put me on.
Bam.
That made me want to die.
Thank you.
That made me never want to be okay with myself. To be okay with things that I've seen and things that I've done. Okay? Cannabis is the only thing that's helped me. And I thank God that we Missourians made it our right as Missourians to partake of it. Many of you don't see that, and I understand that. I get that. But come live in my mind when I'm not medicated, okay? You come live in my mind and tell me that what I'm doing is wrong, okay?
you.
Thank you for that perspective.
So I'm Shirley Martin. I am actually a very productive member in this community. I am sit on the board of a nonprofit. We work with children, autistic special needs families to help them get service animals trained for free. You will have probably also seen me out and in the news because we helped run Rolla Relief Network, which helped the community kind of stay at home and stay unsick while we all helped one another. The reason that I'm here today is because I'm a very sick woman. I'm sorry. I'm a very sick woman. You laughing hurts me more than anything because I have lupus, I have 2 other disorders, I have tremors, I have seizures. I was on 23 medications before medical marijuana, and now I am on 3. I'm on no opiates, none of that, it's all gone because of one plant. The reason that I wanted to speak to you all today is because of what happened with my husband, who is sitting there as well. When we voted all this in for the Compassionate Care Act, my husband and I had a choice to make. We are not by any means even upper middle class, okay? We work every single day. We live paycheck to paycheck. So we had a decision to make whether his health was more important than mine, or if my health was more important to his. Now I want you guys to please just visualize having this conversation with your spouse of who's more important, who gets to be okay. And so basically we decided that I deserved it. I deserved it first because he wanted me okay. While we were, I got my certification, and while we were trying to save up for his, my husband was caught with 2 joints, unsmoked, untouched, in his front pocket while driving to work. He worked 2 jobs at that time because I was so sick. So it was untouched. He didn't smoke it while he was driving. He's a productive member of this society. He pays taxes. He does his civic duty. We take care of our community. We take care of people that you guys don't even see. So he got a ticket. You guys gave him a ticket and a court date. He was on a blackout date at work, and I don't know if everybody knows what that means, but you can't take off. You just can't. So guess what? He missed his court date. So we had to hire a bail bondsman to reset the court date so that he could go pay almost $300 in fines for 2 joints, 2, okay, marijuana cigarettes, whatever you want to call it. And guess what that did? That now put him as a first offender, right?
That's right.
So if he gets caught again,
Jail time.
he goes to jail. Before we can save up to get his certification, he goes to jail, he loses his job, I lose my insurance, we lose our home, and you guys get to pay for it all. Because now I'm on public assistance with all these health problems. Who's paying for it? If my husband is in jail for a joint, for a plant that he is now certified to take legally because we finally were able to save up. This makes no sense to me. So now my husband has been made a criminal because he loved me first, because he was selfless, because he cared about his wife more than he did himself. He's a criminal. And this city has made it that way. We're not druggies, okay? As a matter of fact, this plant took me off those druggy drugs.
That's right.
I was on 90 milligrams of morphine a day. I was on 30 milligrams of Vicodin. I was on 30 milligrams of Valium just to live, speak, and breathe a normal life. And here I stand before you on none of that with one plant.
That's right.
One plant. I don't know how I can say to you that this is absolutely the most ridiculous time spent.
That's right.
It just really is. And I pay taxes. I'm Ward 6. and you're going to hear me over and over and over, because this plant saved my life. My kidneys are no longer in danger. My liver is no longer in danger, but my husband was.
Ma'am, can I speak to you just briefly?
Certainly.
Because I don't want you to think that I disagree with you. I don't. This board can't do the thing that you're wanting done. It has to be done, A, at the congressional level, because regardless of whatever the state of Missouri says, the United States Congress has declared that this is a Schedule I narcotic, which means that it has no medicinal value. I disagree with that. I want to be clear about that. But it is a Schedule I narcotic at the federal level. And until that changes, that it's always going to be against the law, and it will be a crime. Not because it should be, but because a bunch of people in Washington, D.C. got together and voted in favor of it.
So
It's not a...
it has
well,
to start somewhere.
agreed.
Government arresting us in Rolla, it's just you guys.
I'm speaking with this lady here. You can come talk to me later. Ma'am, contact your congressman, contact your state legislators. I absolutely agree with you. But to decriminalize in the way that we're wanting to decriminalize it, it has to be passed at Congress. Then it also has to be passed at the state level. If you want to know who your U.S. senators are, I mean, I will help you anyway. If there's a letter writing campaign, I'll even sign off on the letters. I'll send letters personally. It shouldn't be a Schedule I narcotic. For instance, cocaine is not a Schedule I narcotic.
Crazy, huh?
They say it has medicinal value.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not clear on what that medicinal value would be, but marijuana is supposed to not have any. I think everybody on this board agrees that it should not be a jailable offense. The biggest concern with doing some of the things that we're talking about, I think it's going to make it worse for people if you take jail time and eliminate it completely, because, like your husband, if he gets a warrant to show up because he fails to appear, and he has to serve jail time, the prosecutor then can't go, you can have credit for the time served, rather than make you pay a fine on top of the jail that you never should have had to go to anyway.
You wouldn't go to jail for 2 joints if it was decriminalized.
Well, but this board can't decriminalize it in that way, because it still can go through the state prosecuting attorney. In fact, based off of what you've told me, my guess is, because you said a $300 fine,
Yes.
that it went through state court.
No, he was in your district municipal court here.
Well, if it was under 10 grams, it would have been a $100 fine maximum.
Well, then you tell me why it was paid. I mean, I can show you the tickets if you'd like.
I mean, you can, it may be a Rolla City police officer, but if he went to the courthouse across from the jail?
No.
Or in this room?
Municipal, yeah.
Then,
You go to court. Yeah, I know.
then it should have been a $100 fine.
Or
Might be
not.
court costs.
Well, there's more to the story, but I think we understand your point, and both you and the gentleman have made very compelling cases, truly.
I mean, I just feel like maybe we have a lot more work to do here. Like all these children dying from these pills are coming from somewhere. Y'all get that, right? Y'all get that these pills are coming from somewhere, and they're being sold on the street. And maybe if you weren't out arresting people for pot, you could find who's killing our youth.
Right.
That's all I'm saying. I'm just saying, don't take people to jail for a plant, and help our damn community survive. That's all I'm saying. Just let us live. Let us live. Take away the hard drugs. Focus on that. Leave the plant alone. That's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think something just in response to what Mr. Thurman said, I'd just like to also clarify that our legal review from him talks about some other charter cities, which we are not, has done this. But at the end of it does talk about at least the ability to remove jail time from our ordinance. And I think that's a statement we can make. Yes, Mr. Thurman pointed out, there are clearly some things about how it could go to state court, and it may be convoluted about how that works. We can make a statement. That's the point.
Carolyn?
Am I allowed to say anything?
Yes.
Okay, not defense, just more explanation. I voted for medical marijuana. My sister needed it desperately, and not in time. But I myself had witnessed 5 people, 3 of them distantly related, started with the marijuana, very innocent, very, they said would not hurt them, would not lead to anything else. Ended up going from marijuana to other drugs, and I know that's a choice that people make. I know that it's not everybody. But when they die, you don't forget. So I'm certainly not laughing, but I totally disagree with a lot of things. I know that there are some people it does help, some it doesn't, but you cannot say across the board that this is going to help everybody. Not true.
But we can do that with Vicodin, and we can do that with Suboxone. and we
I don't agree with any of that.
Okay, let's give others a chance. Is there anyone out in the back room that wants to speak? Can somebody check that, Chief? Nudge Andrew. Okay. I just didn't want to get that group there. Yes, sir. Name and address for the record, please.
Keith Reese, the 810 Bray Avenue. So one, I would just like to say that, so about the helmets, who in the, who actually wrote that they were for civil unrest?
For what?
Who wrote that the helmets were for civil unrest?
I was told by the chief that a secretary of his wrote that. I don't know if he didn't read it over, but there was a secretary supposedly.
Okay.
That's what I was told.
That's what I was told as well.
I mean, he's right there. Coming in.
Well, okay, so first off, I'm pretty disappointed in all of you, actually, for your vote, especially for voting before you heard any public comments this evening. You're elected officials. You are supposed to, enact the will of people who voted for you. And second, what the chief said about Florissant protesters being outside agitators is 100% false. And I know that because I'm from Florissant. I was at those protests, and everyone there was a St. Louis resident outraged by the murder of black men by police, which has been happening there for decades. And as for the using those helmets for if there was any kind of civil unrest, just go online and actually do your research, and you'll see that almost every single civil unrest was caused by police action first. And as for not having resources to pay officers or whatever he said, 32% of city expenditures went to the police this year. That is on par with other large cities and other cities of this size as well. So maybe if you can't spend all of your training money on training, you shouldn't have it in the first place. And the rest of you clapping like seals, and you see a man in uniform say something because you already agree with it, disgusting. And people getting upset about mean emails, grow up. That money was earmarked for training, and that's what it should be used for, training. As far as I'm concerned, CIT should not be conducted by armed agents of the state in the first place. Police officers at the last protest in Rolla flipped off some protesters, which I didn't know that, and the person who brought a gun spat on a protester. And I wasn't even coming here to talk about marijuana, but seeing how your boomer-ass responses to it, there are other cities.
What was that term?
Boomer-ass responses. Other cities.
I would ask you to keep your comments.
Other cities.
No, whatever.
Steve Auditor past 5 years of the steps should speak, and we should listen.
That's right.
Thank you very much.
That's right.
Yeah, I
So,
get
yeah,
that.
I'm
I'm
going
just
to keep
asking
talking.
you not to personalize the issue.
I don't care. So,
Your 3
sir,
minutes is almost
other
up.
people, other
We
cities
listened to
have
somebody
voted to
compare
illegal
to
marijuana,
Nazis last time. We
and
can
your-
listen to him.
If he's going to yell at me, then I'm going to yell back.
Oh, okay.
If we don't wind this up soon, this
Marijuana
meeting's
is
gonna
not a
be
gateway
over.
drug, and I'm sorry, your personal anecdotes, although sad, is not science. That's not what the science backs up. I'm done.
Thank you.
Please state your name and address for the record, ma'am.
My name is Tara Nura. Thank you for allowing me that outburst. I did try to listen and respectfully, because I do believe we are in unprecedented times. And I understand that has been said so much now. It has become a cliche. And that is the problem. We need to set aside our differences, political or otherwise, and do what's right for all. Citizens spoke up. I'm sorry there were inappropriate emails. That was not the intent. The intent was for us to come together tonight and have this discussion about solutions, how we're using our money. I was there at the protest. I was part of mutual aid, and I was part of voter registration. Part of mutual aid is working with our police liaison to make sure things are calm. Never once did I think I'd be standing there directing people with children around a man, standing in the middle of our street with a rifle, because he's a white supremacist. We have white supremacy in our city. The police did not address the hours of testimony of our citizens who stood at the bench saying how they had been mistreated by our police and citizens here. Did any of you bring that up while speaking? When I walk my dog, we have to go around needles in the street because we have a drug problem. And thank you, Carolyn, for speaking up. It took a lot of courage to open up and tell something personal in public and show you care. And that's why we need community groups that are working with the police. If we have a Citizens Police Council, I want to know more about it, don't you? How can people be involved with that? And let the police know what's going on in their neighborhoods. Let's have community groups where we listen to professionals and they help with these drug problems, so people aren't having to use illicit drugs and then possibly getting hooked further onto other things. I know there's a difference of opinion, but the problem is we have a drug problem. So we can all sit here tonight and bicker and be upset about what people have said to us over emails or in person, but when it comes down to it, we have to come together. We have to talk clearer between the civilians and the police. We have to come together as a community with plans on how to address drugs, how to address homelessness, how to address mental health issues. And you all had the courage to get up and run for office to do that. And I admire that. Because it took me a lot of courage to stand here tonight and address you. So you must have much more than me to get those emails and to talk to people and listen to people like me. So please, please, if you're gonna let them get those helmets, and he did a great job of coming up and speaking, and we see other things were not addressed, right? So let's move forward, address that, and at least look at the other propositions in that resolutions that the citizens have put forward. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak to City Council? If not, moving on to Mayor or City Council comments. I have 3 reappointments that I would like you to consider. The first is Dr. Delbert Day as a reappointment to the Airport Advisory Committee. Is there a motion to approve Dr. Day?
So moved.
Motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The second one is a reappointment of Councilwoman Jody Eberly to the Airport Advisory Committee.
Make a motion.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And the last one is a reappointment of Dr. Ronald Wilkerson to the Airport Advisory Committee.
Make a motion.
Second.
Second.
Motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Any other city council comments before moving on to comments of the good of the order? David?
I should have a quick question. I don't know if Steve...
You haven't had a quick one tonight.
What's that?
You haven't had a quick one tonight.
Oh, this one's going to be quick. I promise. I didn't tell you the other ones would be. This is the quick one for tonight. Steve Hargis, are you there?
Steve, it might be Darren there.
Darren, are you there?
No, Steve is here. Oh, he's not there.
Two Steves.
Yes, I'm here. I just wanted to mention, I think I may have even talked to Darren about this issue, but on Holloway, there was some work done, roads finished, and then there were some differences in the potholes, and I've had a number of complaints in my ward about going down Holloway Street from 10th to Salem with these potholes. Is there anything we can do, and/or if we can't, is there a reason that we didn't hold the contractor liable for having that perfect?
So just the manholes is the city's responsibility on the contract. I'm looking into a piece of equipment. You'll probably see me come to council. I'm hoping next council meeting for an award for a piece of equipment that we can use to fix those.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it. My constituents will be happy about that.
And just to clarify, you're talking about manholes?
Manholes, yeah, it was the difference in the street to the manhole.
Yeah.
Okay.
We usually just do it straight through and come back and cut them, don't we?
Yeah, or just put risers in the manholes and adjust them.
Any other council
Darren.
comments?
I have something. So the road, and I apologize, I meant to jot it down, the road that runs behind GameStop and GNC and all of that, that is like in between those buildings, the back of those buildings.
And AutoZone?
And the AutoZone. We had I had a few emails from a citizen about, number one, the state of the landscaping and the
That's the road that's
the
closed,
brush.
right?
Not on the,
No.
not on
Oh, the one-
the south side.
No,
of the
it's
city.
not.
Okay.
And then there's been some dumping, and I'm not clear on whose responsibility that would be, but there's some construction stuff, including an old bathtub back there
Are we talking
on the
about the
side of the
Dean
road.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's on the radar.
So is that the city's, or is that a right-of-way on the back where that retaining wall is? Is that our responsibility or the property owner?
No, it's the adjacent property owner. If you're talking about the area of Dean property in particular, so that would be the eastern side of that.
The bathtub is actually on the side where the retaining wall is behind the strip mall. So
Okay.
it's on that side of the street.
Yeah. So it's the adjacent property owners, and we'll just have to cite them, and if they don't, yeah, we'll post nuisances. And I saw a similar email that was complaining about kind of the grass and the conditions of the whole property. Very little is going to be done with that, other than keeping 5 to 10 foot back, cut back from the curb. The condition of that property has been terrible for a long time. There's actually an old court order about the right to sort of leave that in a pretty deteriorated condition until such time as a redevelopment occurs. So, but we'll turn that over to Environmental Services and Community Development for a bathtub and other debris that might be out there.
Sure, thank you.
Jody?
Just a warning that the street folks have started working on Lions Club Drive repaving, and it's kind of a mess, so if you regularly use Lions Club Drive, you might want to find another way to get where you're going for a while.
Comments for the good of the order? I have one, just maybe an extension of Sarah's comments on COVID. I think that it's going to be really difficult for this council to strike that fine line and get a consensus or a majority on what to do in the community. So rather, at least the way I've resigned myself, is rather than try and fight that fight either way, I think if everybody just uses some common sense, I don't say that to offend anybody, but look, social distancing works. If you can't social distance, wear a mask. I don't think anybody wants to put in restrictions. I don't think anybody wants to close down businesses. That's certainly not our intent. But we collectively, as citizens of Rolla, do somewhat control our destiny. And I got to tell you, I go to a lot of places, and I'm a little ashamed to say this, but I find less social distancing and mask usage in Rolla than I do at a whole lot of other places. And I wish that wasn't the case, because I think we really can keep businesses open, and we can stay healthy. Every personal right has a personal responsibility associated with it. So I'm appealing to the citizens, don't forget those responsibilities, and just please, please try to just make some small lifestyle changes for the good of all of us.
And Mayor, if I could just add to that, our current ordinance expires July 21st, so it's going to expire the day after the next council meeting. So that'll either drift off the books unless there's some suggestion about an extension or modification of that, so.
Yeah, St. Louis is now requiring masks. I understand, I didn't see it myself, but the city of Columbia is tonight, I think they might have a council meeting. They are looking at enforcing mask usage to the point where citizens are $15 fine if they don't wear it. If the business is not enforcing, it's a $100 fine. Look, we don't want that. We don't want that here, I get it. But again, let's control our own destiny a little bit. Other comments? Summerfest is this weekend, right?
Friday,
Summerfest, the group has worked very, very hard. They've put a lot of effort into how they're going to plan the event, not just the activities, but from a health perspective as well. So hope they have a good turnout. And David, you can save your money because this year I'm not in the dunk booth.
Oh, they wanted me in there this year.
But that's a great cause. It's a great cause, the Optimist.
Oh, good.
Okay, if there's no other comments, we do have one item to close session, and that is for contract negotiation. So if there's a motion.
Down here, I think.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Richard.
I just wanted to follow up on your comments, because we had been talking previously about and drafting an ordinance that might have trigger points. Is that something we're going to be looking at or discussing at the next meeting, or?
We are talking to what I call the COVID team, and that continues to be a very elusive target. I think of all of the ones we've seen and talked about, hospital admissions seems to be one of the ones, but I don't, John, you tell me if I disagree, but I don't think the group is settled in on that. I mean, I think it's more of a case of, look, when the community, we'll all recognize when we get to that point. Now, what's that point? Is it 49 cases? Is it 100? I don't know, but it's, it's hard to get a consensus on anything related to COVID. We did get an update regarding the university, and they're taking this issue very seriously. So incoming students will be required to fill out a form. They're not going to be able to test all 7,000 or 8,000 kids on the day they hit campus, but based on the screening, they will selectively look for the potentials, if you will, depending on that person's travel, depending on where they're coming from, so they'll work through testing on that basis. What they can do on campus is a whole lot more than they can do for the students that actually live in our community, which is the overwhelming bulk of them. But the physician at MS&T is concerned. He continues, and each week when we have these conversations, he's very cognizant of the community concerns. So it's a weekly discussion. It's a weekly discussion.
Thank you.
Okay, so is there a motion to go into closed session dealing with contract negotiations?
So motion.
A second, roll call vote.
Eberly? Yes. Allen?
Yes.
Murphy? Yes. Bolin?
Yes.
Schneider? Yes. Reuter?
Yes.
Higgins?
Yes.
Lyons?
Yes.
Crowd?
Yes.
Schott? Yes. Florence?
Yes.
11 ayes.
You never signed up for the.
This is fun. This is
A lot
fun.
of people here.